Hi, I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kate, and you're listening to One Lump or Two,
The boldest breast cancer podcast yet.
Join us each week as we offer an intimate glimpse into the challenges, triumphs and unexpected levity of facing breast cancer head-on in our 30s.
Now, let's pull back the curtain and dive on in. Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm not too bad, thanks.
Good.
Feeling a little bit sad today, because this is one of our last episodes.
It's like the last episode, but we've split it into two, because we just want to keep the good times going, you know?
I'm just sad we won't be talking so much.
I know, so this episode, you know, not to, give the illusion of, the podcast away. Obviously, it's all pre-recorded, and we've pre-recorded interviews with our parents. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to give a brief introduction, and then we're kind of just going to let them take it away.
Yeah. I think it's really important that we spoke to our parents.
Oh, definitely. I think it was a really interesting conversation to have, and we kind of just made them relive the trauma with us.
As if it wasn't traumatic
I
enough.
know. Just making them relive it, and it was emotional experience, because you don't obviously you live it with them in the moment, and I don't know about you, but I've certainly not discussed it with them. You just you live it and then you move on. So it's really interesting to kind of listen.
You're too busy just going through it, and then you're through it, not that we're through it, but you're through it and life.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
it.
You just kind of move on with your life. So it was very interesting. And because we've never really been a family that talks to each other about our thoughts and feelings.
Okay.
So it was really interesting actually to kind of hear them, and it was emotional to watch them. I definitely cried when we did it. So we've decided to, because we were going to do it hear from one parent and then hear from the other, but the episode would be really long, and we don't want you guys to get bored, because you won't be hearing the same thing, because our parents will have had different things to say. Hopefully we've not actually listened to each other's parents yet. But we thought the best case would be to split it into two, and this way you guys just get more podcast fun.
So should we hear from mine first?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Hello, Kate here, and I'm here today with my mum, Sue, hello, and my dad, Mark.
Hello.
Mum and dad. Both Shelley and I have never sat down and really spoken to our parents about our diagnosis and the whole thing. Actually, when we did a lot of research, there aren't many people out there that talk about it from that perspective. So we want to plug that gap. So I have some questions for you. Number one, how did you feel and what were your immediate thoughts when I told you I was diagnosed? So the experience for both of you was different. Mum, you were at the hospital with me.
Yes, I mean, just the day that you found the lump blew my mind. And even though part of me was going, it's nothing, don't panic. The other part of me was going, oh, panic. The denial part won over mostly until the day you rang me and said, I've been told to come into hospital. And then it was, I don't want to say anything because I know nothing I say is going to be what I want to say. And then knowing when you came out of the hospital and got into the car and just cried, it just numbed me in a way, completely numbed me, because I didn't want what I felt to overtake what you were obviously feeling. And I felt like I had to keep it together for you. And I don't know whether I did.
I think you did.
Only because I switched on.
Because you had to drive home.
Yes. But I have absolutely no idea of, that's one of those journeys I just can't remember. I just can't remember because I don't think I was conscious.
Well, you were, because you drove the car home and we got home. And obviously Dad wasn't with us at the hospital. Dad was at school. He's a teacher. And we had to try and engineer getting my dad home without causing too much panic and stress.
What you hadn't said is that I didn't know anything about this until the day that you told me.
Dad had no idea, because I found my lump on Christmas Day and I came over to my mum's and I told my mum. I kept my mum in the loop, and we hadn't told Dad. I think I knew it was something, but I think what was the point of worrying you when there is a chance there might have been nothing to worry you about?
Well, I got a text that said, come home now. And I couldn't, because I was doing a duty, wasn't I, at school. Got a follow-up text that said, no, come home now. Fortunately, I got a good friend at school, Robin, who walked into the room, and I just looked at him and said, Robin, I have to go. You have to do this now. And I just left. And I probably worked it out by the time I'd come home.
Yeah.
Not the details, but I clearly worked out that something was about to hit the fan.
The moment when I had you guys here and Shane and Jenny, and I remember very clearly that initial moment where like everybody was in the room and everybody knew that there was something horrible about to happen.
Yes, I think that was the worst for you.
And everybody was standing up, and I remember telling you all to sit down because I just had this overwhelming sense of like everything was just closing in around me, and I already felt like I couldn't back out the words that were about to come out of my mouth, and therefore the repercussions of those words.
You needed to vomit it out as soon as possible.
And it was like, I just need everyone to sit down. I just need there to be space for these words to fill. And I think obviously Mum was more in on the situation than you were, Dad, and obviously you didn't take the news very well.
Had we told Jen?
Yeah, Jen knew I was at the hospital.
So I was the only one in the room who didn't.
Yeah, sorry.
I know I did it. I'm not bitter.
Yeah.
I'm not angry about it. I know exactly why you did it.
Yeah, we did it to protect you.
And I find this really hard to talk about, and I get very upset about it, and I make no excuse. If you really want to know what the impact was of getting the news, Kate, well, just the bottom fell out of my life, as you know. You remember what happened. I literally fell to my knees, and I just hugged you, and all I said was, not my little girl, even though you're 30-odd. And believe it or not, out of everything that you went through, and we all went through, it's that moment that is the worst of all.
I think the bit I found harder in that moment was the moment afterwards when you and I were in the kitchen. We were sat opposite each other on the floor, and I was telling you, it's fine, I've looked into this, and I had academic papers up on my phone of my specific type of cancer, and I was telling you that
I know, you said
it's 1 in a million.
it's a rare form of cancer, yet you hear that word rare and you automatically think it's bad.
But it's overtaken by the word cancer, isn't it?
Yeah, it was just huge. And to some extent, I lost the use of my legs that evening. The following day at work was the moment it really hit, when I walked into the staff room, and clearly my chums at work knew something was amiss, and just said, everybody, I need to tell you, I've got to be open about this because I can't keep this secret. I said, my daughter's got breast cancer. And it was then the sledgehammer hit me between the eyes. I never expected to say your name and the word cancer in the same sentence, ever.
We'd always had this shadow of cancer hanging over in a way, didn't we? Because my mum died very young of cancer. She was 27 when she died. I was 3. Her mum died of breast cancer, but in her 70s.
That I know I made some joke to you about like, oh, wouldn't it be funny if it skipped you and came to me? In like a really like, that's not going to happen. And then...
Yeah.
But for a long time, I felt guilty. I felt responsible. I felt...
Well, no, because we've not got any there's no genetic link.
No, we know that now, but we didn't know that then. And I was thinking, how come I don't appear to have had it? It should have been me. It certainly shouldn't have been my girl. And has it come from me? Even if I haven't got it myself, have I passed it on? Even though I know it's got no genetic link, and even though I know it's a rare kind, and even though I know all of that, there's still a tiny part of me that goes, it's my side of the family that's got it.
Let's move on to something equally horrific.
I thought you were going to lighten the mood then.
I had to do every single second of this inside the hospital on my own because of COVID. And I know how horrible it must have been for you to watch the decline, as it were, as you went through the chemotherapy. Is there a part of you that is grateful for COVID, meaning that you didn't have to sit and what was being pumped into me to make that happen?
No. Although, in a little way, yes, because I spent God alone knows how many hours sat in the car waiting for you. I found a nice spot to sit where I could watch the birds and the butterflies and the bees and the flowers, and there was a little bit of a trail and a stream where I parked, so I would read for a bit, I would knit for a bit in the car, and I'd get out and walk for a bit. So it gave me that downtime, but in the back of my head for every single second was, she's in there on her own and she shouldn't be in there on her own.
I mean, I was mostly asleep. Certainly for the longer ones.
I'm your mum. I should have been there.
Yeah, and we were just stuck with our imagination of you plugged into various things with all sorts of green goo being shoved into your veins and all sorts. That's what your brain does. You've got no idea. You make it worse. And I was stuck at work teaching other people's children. They were demanding my time.
Well, your child.
When my daughter was there sitting in a chair with a cold cap on, having God knows what pumped into her veins, and there was absolutely nothing I could do just to be there, just to support anything. All I did, when did you start?
April the 2nd.
April. So April through till July, because my first week of summer holiday was the only appointment where I wasn't teaching. I could get in the car and go with you. And it was the last one. And I was insistent that I was going to be with you. And at least I would just say, at least I went to one appointment.
I think from my point of view, because I sat there and like nothing was happening, I was just sat in a chair. And certainly for the Pax Taxel, I was asleep for most of it. I was kind of like, oh, well, I'm glad they're not here to see nothing, but to see the thing responsible.
We'd have preferred to be with you.
Don't care how awful it would have been.
Sleeping on the arm of your chair.
Just pacing up and down the room. Don't care.
It was very lonely. I remember first or second chemotherapy, I was sat next to an old man who was having a transfusion, and he turned to me and he went, "What are you doing here? You're too young."
Yeah, well, that's not the way it works, is it? All I could do for those 3 months was on my laptop at work. It was continually on. And you know this.
Yeah.
Facebook Messenger was constantly open. I was talking to you in the middle of lessons while teaching, darling.
Oh, yeah, I knew that because of the time of day.
And now, children, time for you to go and just get on with it, okay? My daughter needs me. And I make no bones about it. There were times when I just got the kids to do something quietly so I could sit and quietly type to you.
If I'm grateful for anything, it's the existence of mobile phones now. That made life much easier. Bonate Day.
Bonate Day. Remember that, because it was all on Facebook. I can feel everybody about. I can feel when my ears meet my head.
I could.
Yeah, I know. So you told me. That's what we remember. Last episode, you said you were aware that you had a skeleton. That's all we could do was just break the rules at work and have social media open 24 hours a day.
Do you think that cancer, or not necessarily cancer, I guess the experience of cancer has changed our relationships?
I think it probably made you and me closer.
I spoke to you every day anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there were times when you spoke to me for 4 hours a day. So I think yes, it helped your and my relationship to some extent. I'm very aware of the fact that we don't talk for 4 hours a day now.
I have my life back.
Oh, well, no, I just thought I'd talk to you for a bit. I think it's also made me feel more protective about you now than before.
Well, yeah, it's like when I rang yesterday and you immediately like, you sound upset.
Yeah.
And I was upset, but I was upset because I had no internet.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything life-changing.
Yeah.
I'm a bloke and I find this very difficult to talk about.
I know, but that's part of the point.
Of course it has. I mean, the fact that I'm sitting here almost in tears, darling.
Please don't take this the wrong way. But I think up until I was diagnosed, you and I had a fairly aloof relationship as such. Like, I'm your dad and I'm here if you need me, come to me.
Yes.
Whereas then we went to you were checking in with me every single day.
Yeah.
Or at certain days when you knew that was a bad day.
What it did was bring to the surface just exactly how much I love you, darling.
I'm a great daughter as well, so yeah.
I was going to say that whole episode passed as if it's past. It's not. It's with us. We know now. We know it's with us, with you, or it's with us.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a travelling companion, but it was the greatest threat. It was the greatest threat to you, and it was the greatest threat to our family unit that we have ever and probably ever will face.
Hopefully.
That's how I look at it. At this moment in time,
Is there anything I could have done to better help you understand my needs or what I was going through?
You could have stopped being so... There were times when we just wanted to get in the car and do what we wanted, do what the only thing that we could do would be to drive over and just scoop you off the floor and just do whatever and be there. Oh, no, I'm fine. I'm all bullshit.
I know, but I didn't want you to see me being...
sick and bald. Yeah, I know. But, there were times when we were saying to them, just let us go and do the shopping for you, love, because that was the only thing we could do. So, right, darling. Sorry, listeners. That's the dog.
What was I think I probably know Dad's answer to this anyway. What was the hardest part of the whole thing? So certainly for Mum, the point I walked in on Christmas Day to today.
There were 3 hard parts for me. The worst for me was the day you had surgery. I thought I was fine about that because they were sorting the problem. it's going to be done. That was lovely, everything. And then you texted me after surgery, and I'd been fine at work. You texted me at work to say that you were out and you were okay, and I just fell apart. Just absolutely fell apart. That for me, I think, is the day that it hit me hardest in a way, because everything else was like, just get on with it. We'll deal with it. We'll have this. And the surgery was a pivotal moment for me. And another one was the first bone-ache day, when you rang and you just said you were in so much pain. And I don't think you even finished talking before I put the phone down and was in the car on the way over. And then turning up and finding you in the state that you were in that day, and knowing that there was absolutely nothing. And you touched on this in your last episode. The fact that we as parents were so helpless because there was nothing we could do to take your pain away.
That was the hardest bit. Couldn't even scoop you up in the arms and just give you a hug because that would cause you pain.
Yeah. Do you think the whole thing has changed how you treat me?
Well, we don't treat with kid gloves. We don't wrap you cotton wool, and we're not afraid. We're really pleased that you're getting your life back and you're doing your own thing again, which is the right thing. But yeah, this is a travelling companion, and I am aware that you've got a checkup coming up soon. I don't sit here and worry about it. I don't sit here and think, oh God, what's it going to be? There is no point.
I worry about it.
It's a case of what will be, and we'll face it when it comes.
If we had to do all of this again, whether that is me or somebody else, what would you do differently?
Don't know. Don't think about it.
It was very easy to drop everything then, but it's not so easy now.
Oh, I'm sorry, but if I get cancer again, I think I'm a bit more important than the dog. Do you think it's changed me?
Yes.
How?
Well, you're doing this for a start. You've become a bit of a crusader. Yeah, you have. You have done. I would never have believed that this would have been the stuff you've done with getting in touch with breast cancer now, and sort of, first of all, the first move of this was putting your story onto the internet, and then you broke it. You're going to do this podcast, and the fact that you've reached out to other people in your home area. I would never have thought that would have been an outcome.
Publicised it almost by filling your window with breast cancer awareness things. You've been upfront and open, and you had all thoughts on what you wanted, and you have always been more stubborn than most people can humanly think is possible.
Yeah, I think Sharon would attest to that.
I think it's accentuated them as well. I think you will now fight tooth and nail, and I think you're much more able to look into what you think you need to look into. You think there's an answer out there somewhere, you will go and hunt it down.
I know it's definitely made me stand up for myself in a different way. I know I've always stood up for myself quite well, but I know I've had health issues in the past, and I've met the receptionist at the doctor's surgery, and I've just taken what she said as, oh, okay. Twice in the last month, I've kept her on the phone until she's agreed to give me an appointment. I don't care if that's in 2 weeks' time. I am being seen. And no, I am not calling you up every day because I struggle with brain fog.
You just referred to your brain fog there. You said, I've got brain fog. And I look at you and talk to you nowadays. Really?
But my entire life it's on a pad of paper. I haven't had to rely on the pad of paper before. Before it's been, I'll jot that down and I'll come back to it at some point. I now have pads of paper in my work bag, in my car, in our bedroom, in the living room, in the kitchen. There isn't a single place where there isn't one, so that those fleeting thoughts or things that I could catch and commit to memory before, I can write down.
You with brain fog is still a million times more efficient than most other people without.
I think it's made me realise how hard I am on myself. Not that I've started to be less hard on myself. How high my expectation of my own standards of myself are. What's your funniest memory of the whole thing?
There isn't one.
It's okay to laugh at it, and it's okay to find things that aren't funny.
When your hair started to grow back, you went through all the various stages, and we laughed at those. Stage 1, furry hamster, velvet head. I apologise for anyone listening, but you went through butch lesbian phase with sort of dark, short hair that made you look very aggressive, and then you look like my mum. But my mum that I remember as a kid, those are moments that, and they're not laugh out loud moments, but there were moments that meant that the worst was over and this was you coming back?
Yeah.
Because your hair has always been important to you.
The biggest contrast in emotion moment for me was the day you shaved the hair and we had that awful ceremonial shaving. And then I think us feeling like we'd both just done 10 rounds with Frank Bruno emotionally. And then standing downstairs going, how the hell and what is she laughing about now? This does not compute. And then you came down and you told us that was the biggest emotional extreme.
Oh no, hang on a minute. I just a point here, listener. Just another little bit of bitterness here. They're talking about keeping me in the dark. Yeah, Sue knew that Shane had proposed in that moment. They didn't tell me for another 2 weeks later.
We didn't tell Dad until the ring arrived.
Yeah, right. So thanks for that.
I think for me, the funniest moments, and they both relate to conversation I was mainly having with Dad. I think like maybe the second or third bone ache day after we kind of realised that, this was it. This was going to be tough. And then I was talking to you and sending you pictures of me as a worm.
Oh, God, I'd forgotten about that.
I want to be a worm.
I'd forgotten that.
I've got the screenshot because I was having a whale of a time.
Yeah, I want to be a worm because worms don't have bones. God, yes.
There was a period of time while I was on chemotherapy where I didn't see Dad because Dad is a teacher in COVID. I think I didn't see Dad for maybe like a month.
Yeah.
And you'd see me bald, but still with my eyebrows and my eyelashes. And then the next time you saw me, I had none of them. And I walked through the door and Dad went, I don't want to be rude, but you look like a lizard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. If you had any advice for another parent in the same situation as you with an adult young daughter, what do you think you'll want a piece of advice to them?
I think you have to accept that your life is at somebody else's behest for 6 months. You have to suspend your own life for 6 months and be happy and accepting about it.
Realise what's important because all the other bullshit isn't. This is.
And last question, did it make me your favourite daughter? Yes, is the answer to that.
It's just hideous, Katie. The whole thing was just hideous.
Wow. That was really emotional, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it?
Just I got so emotional actually, like listening to it and when your dad said that he just like dropped to his knees, like that was so sad. Like I genuinely like welled up hearing that.
He proper did as well. Like fell to the floor, just swept me up in this big hug, and I had to ask him to let go of me, and then he just disappeared. And I found him in the kitchen, like head in hands, staring into the washing machine of all things. He was just so upset, like completely understandably, but it was a lot.
Yeah. So were you not like super close to your dad before, or?
No. So I think we had a relationship where if I needed him, I just had to say, and he'd be there. But he's not very forthcoming when it comes to emotions. Mm-hmm. Whereas now he checks in on me quite a lot for the good stuff and the bad stuff. We've got like a family group chat that quite often my dad is the one that sends the message to first, which like he didn't take part before. He was like a silent participant. So it's really nice that has changed and it has made us closer.
A lot closer.
Yeah.
That's really nice. I found it really funny though that you didn't tell your dad that Shane proposed. Like he literally just found out like a week later.
I know.
I'd be so pissed. Your poor dad.
I know. It's because I wanted the ring to arrive. Like, I didn't want to tell him I was engaged and be like, oh, yeah, but I don't have the ring because it's still in America.
Oh,
so we waited till the ring arrived, so then I could be like, look at my shiny piece of jewellery.
Nice. Would he have been like, Shane, what the fuck? Like, why did you not buy her a ring?
I don't know. I did ask Shane, actually, if he'd asked my dad.
Oh, okay.
Because my parents are really traditional.
Oh, are they?
And I don't necessarily give much of a shit about tradition.
No.
But part of me was like, oh my God, what if he has asked my dad and my dad already knows? I think I'd have found that way weirder.
Would you? Yeah, I think I would as well. I wouldn't want anyone to ask my parents' permission. I think it's weird.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different thing. But how did you feel listening to that back?
It was quite tough. Experiencing it, right, and seeing my parents cry through it is one thing, but listening back and hearing it in their voices, because actually when I was recording them, I thought, oh, they still sound completely normal, but you could hear it there.
You can hear their voices breaking
all the time, yeah. So that was really tough. And I know that when I asked my parents to interview them, my dad said, why? And we just panicked. He was like, but we promised we'd never cry about this in front of you. And I was like, oh, well, you're just going to have to break that promise.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was tough, but quite a cathartic experience.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, definitely. I found it really emotional, and I don't even know your parents. I've never met your parents. But listening to that, I just found it like so emotional, and it was interesting actually how, I mean, you've not listened to mine yet, and without giving any spoilers away, it's completely, well, some of the answers were the same, but like it was very different to what kind of how my parents answered the questions, and they're like, I don't know, their experience, I guess, was completely different. Yeah.
I think my favourite part of that whole thing was when I asked my dad about the funny bits, and he just came back and was like, nothing was funny. Because there were some really funny bits in there, actually. And like, I really hold on to those moments. They're huge, like, moments for me in the whole process. So I was a bit taken back when he was like, nothing.
My dad had a similar answer. He was like, there's nothing funny about cancer. Well, there is though, and like likewise, like we did have funny moments throughout, and like obviously you and your family did as well, but I think it's hard to pinpoint the funny moments exactly because they're kind of like overtaken and overwhelmed by like the sadness and the horrible things that are going on. So I guess like looking back and trying to pinpoint like a really funny moment is quite difficult because I think they can get really overshadowed. Yeah,
and I think for us though, because we're in it, the funny moments are these big, beautiful sunshines that come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But whereas for our family who are going through it in a different way, but aren't living quite in the crap quite as much, they're less of these big, funny things.
Yeah, I think because the emotions are so like opposite. Like you can be feeling like so depressed, and then like something funny will happen, and it's such an opposite emotion. Like it does kind of like maybe stick in our minds a little bit more than it would do like their minds maybe.
Yeah, I did struggle to see my dad crying. I drove home like quite shaky actually afterwards from talking to them, and quite upset that they were so upset.
Right.
Because they were upset because of something I'd put them through.
Well, yeah, it was your fault. It was kind of your fault.
I'm so sorry I got cancer. But do you know what I mean? Like, I would change it if I could and not put them through it.
But, of course.
Like, when they were saying that there was nothing they could do to take that pain away, like, I felt that on the drive home because I can't make any of this better for them.
No. And it's no one's fault that you got cancer. Like,
no.
You know, it is what it is, and it is difficult though to like. I think your parents. You view your parents as this like these amazing people that take care of you, and like nothing bad ever happens to them, and they can cope with anything. And then to see them like that is a bit. You realise that actually they're humans. They're not aliens. They're not robots. They have really human emotions. But I don't know. Like I don't see that kind of emotion from my parents.
No,
very
I don't.
Often.
I think that's maybe like only the second or third time I've seen my dad like cry.
Yeah.
One of those times being when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting when they talked about what their imagination was doing because the whole thing for me was factual. I was told on my own, and I immediately went into, I need to pay attention. I need to know the facts so I can relay the facts to everyone else so that everyone knows what's happening. I felt like by doing that, I was stopping the imagination piece.
Yeah.
Like I was really good at telling them like, yeah, today I'm having EC. It's this, it looks like this. This is what's going to happen. This is how long it's going to take. I felt like I was getting rid of that. So when they said like, oh yeah, we were just imagining the worst, I was like, but Why? Because I told you what was happening.
Yeah. I think it's difficult though, because we don't have to do a measurement because we're going through it, and I think it's hard to like worry what they're thinking at the time, because we're the ones that are going through it, and we're the ones that like are having to deal with all of this stuff, and you know, being depressed and anxious and sitting in the chair and having drugs pumped into you and all this information. Like, you kind of don't have time to worry about like what your parents might be thinking in that exact moment, which sounds a bit harsh, but like, I don't know, you just don't really think about it.
I honestly hadn't thought about it from like that side of the fence. It was, to me, it was just, I've told you what's happening, that's what's happening, done.
I mean, at least you'd like, I didn't really explain any of it.
Did you not?
No, I was just like, I'm going in for chemo again.
Oh God, I was giving them rundowns of
I gave
information.
Bits of information.
What type of chair I was sat in if I was in a bed.
Oh no. I was like, yeah, go for chemo again. Can you drop me off? No.
Well, we've not spoken about it since. So we've done the interview. That's it.
Never speak about it again.
Yeah.
Do you want to share your story? We'd love to hear from you, whether you've had cancer or not. Slide into our DMs on Instagram at onelump_or2.
Or email us at onelumportwopod@gmail.com.
See you next week.
Bye.